Joan Park sat at his small desk in his tiny apartment, looking at bills he couldn't pay. The rent was due in 3 days. His job at the university lab barely covered food, and his student loans kept growing. At 28, this wasn't how he imagined his life would be. He had a degree in geology, but not much else. The message alert on his tablet broke his thoughts. An official notice from a law firm on Proxima Centauri, the closest exoplanet to Earth. June almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but the subject line mentioned his great-uncle Q. Mr. Park, we regret to inform you of the passing of Q Park, your great-uncle. In his will, he has named you the sole heir to his property on Proxima Centauri, specifically the mining operation known as Sector 7. Jun read the message 3 times. He had met Great-Uncle Q only twice in his life. The old man had left Earth 50 years ago to seek fortune in the stars. Family rumors said he had gone crazy out there, chasing myths about alien treasures. A mine? What would I do with a mine? Jun said to his empty apartment. The next message came with legal documents and a small sum of money for transport, enough to get to Proxima Centauri and back. Jun stared at his bills again. He had nothing to lose. 3 weeks later, Jun sat in a transport ship watching the blue-green surface of Proxima Centauri grow larger through the window. The pilot, a man named Tai, kept glancing at him. So you're the new owner of Sector 7, Ta said finally. No one's been in that mine for years. Why not? Jun asked. Is it empty? Tai's hands tightened on the controls. Your uncle never found what he was looking for, but he kept digging. Deeper than anyone should go on this planet. What was he looking for? He had strange ideas. Said the mine was older than human space travel. Said there were markings inside that no human made. Ta shook his head. People thought he was crazy. The locals don't go near that place now. The transport landed on a flat area near a small settlement. About 30 buildings clustered together, with fields of crops growing under protective domes. Mountains rose in the distance, dark against the red sky. An official named Han met Jun at the landing pad. His face showed relief when he handed over the access codes and ownership papers. Your uncle's living quarters are still intact, Han said. Basic supplies are there. The settlement is happy to trade if you need anything else. Has anyone been in the mine since my uncle died? Jun asked. Han looked away. No, no one goes there. Some say they hear noises at night. Lights sometimes shine from deep inside the mountain when all the power should be off. Jun thought about those bills waiting back on Earth. I need to see what's in there. Maybe there's something valuable left. Han gave him a small communication device. Take this. No signals reach inside those mountains. A small vehicle took Jun to the mine entrance. As he approached, he saw it was much bigger than he expected. A massive opening cut into the mountain, with heavy metal doors standing open. Strange symbols were carved into the rock around the entrance. They looked like no language Jun had ever studied. Inside the entrance was a small building where his uncle had lived. It was simple but comfortable. Maps covered one wall, marked with notes in his uncle's handwriting. Many showed tunnels going deep into the mountain, with question marks in the deepest sections. As night fell, Jun stood at the mine entrance, looking into the darkness. The air coming from inside felt strangely warm and carried a smell like ozone. He turned on his flashlight and took a few steps in. The walls didn't look right. The cuts were too smooth, too perfect. No mining tool Jun knew could make such clean surfaces. He touched the wall and felt a slight vibration. Going deeper, he found mining equipment his uncle had used. Old-fashioned drills and carts sat abandoned, but beyond them, the tunnels changed. They became perfectly round, with smooth floors. No human had made these. Jun checked his scanner. It showed metal deposits further in, but also something else, energy readings that made no sense. The device couldn't identify what was causing them. In one tunnel, he found markings similar to those outside, but these glowed faintly in the dark. When June touched them, they brightened briefly. As he turned to head back, he heard a sound, a low hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then a distant chime, like crystal being struck. June ran back to the living quarters, his heart racing. He spent the night reading his uncle's journals. Most entries were about the search for something called the Ancient Ones. His uncle believed the mine had been created millions of years before humans reached the stars. The final entry read, "I found the door today. It's hidden deep in the North Tunnel. The symbols there match the oldest section of the mine. I can't open it, but something is alive behind it. I can feel it waiting." In the morning, June packed supplies and checked his equipment. The energy readings bothered him, but as a scientist, he couldn't ignore them. Whatever was in this mine, it wasn't just rocks and minerals. He set off down the North Tunnel, following his uncle's maps. The mystery of what waited in the depths pulled him forward. As a geologist, he had always searched for answers in stone. Now, for the first time, he felt like the stones themselves were searching for him. The North Tunnel grew darker as June moved deeper into the mountain. His flashlight beam caught glints of strange metal in the walls. Not gold or copper, but something silvery blue that he had never seen before. When he touched it, the metal felt warm. June checked his scanner again. The energy readings were getting stronger. According to the device, he was moving towards something that produced power, but there should be no power source this deep in an abandoned mine. "What did you find, Uncle Q?" June whispered to himself. 3 hours into his exploration, June reached a part of the tunnel that looked different. The walls changed from natural rock to a smooth material that reminded him of polished glass. His footsteps echoed strangely, as if the tunnel was bigger than it appeared. Suddenly, his scanner beeped loudly. The energy reading had jumped to a level that made no sense. June tapped the device, thinking it was broken, but the reading stayed high. Around the next bend, the tunnel opened into a large round room. June's mouth fell open in shock. The ceiling rose at least 30 feet high, covered in the same strange symbols he had seen at the entrance. But these symbols glowed with a soft blue light, moving slowly across the surface like stars. In the center of the room stood what looked like control panels, covered in dust. They were nothing like human technology. There were no buttons or screens, just smooth surfaces with more glowing symbols. June approached carefully and brushed dust from one panel. As soon as his fingers touched it, the entire panel lit up with blue light. A humming sound filled the room, and the floor began to vibrate slightly. "Hello," June called out, his voice shaking. "Is someone here?" Only his echo answered him. He examined the panels more closely. They seemed to be made of the same silvery blue metal he had seen in the tunnel walls. When he placed his palm flat on one panel, the light pulsed brighter, and new symbols appeared. On the far side of the room, part of the wall slid open. June jumped back, his heart racing. Behind the wall was a dark hallway. Blue lights came on along the floor, as if inviting him forward. June hesitated. He could turn back now, return to the settlement, and tell them what he had found. But curiosity pulled at him. This was no ordinary mine. Whatever his uncle had discovered, it was far more important than gold or gems. Taking a deep breath, Jun stepped into the hallway. The lights moved with him, turning on ahead and off behind as he walked. The air felt fresher here, as if some system was still working after who knew how many years. The hallway ended at a circular door. Unlike the rough mining tunnels, everything here was built with perfect precision. The door was made of what looked like crystal, with symbols etched into its surface. June studied the symbols. They reminded him of star charts, but the patterns were unfamiliar. Next to the door was a small panel with a handprint outline carved into it. "This must be the door Uncle Q mentioned," Jun said to himself. Slowly, he placed his hand on the outline. The crystal door hummed and began to glow. The symbols lit up one by one, moving in a circle. With a soft sound like singing glass, the door slid open. Cold air rushed out, carrying a sweet smell like nothing on earth. June stepped through the doorway and found himself in a chamber that took his breath away. The room was perfectly round, with a high dome ceiling covered in tiny lights that looked like stars. In the center was a raised platform. Above it floated what appeared to be a woman. But she was not human. Her skin was silver blue, like the metal in the walls. Her body was slender and tall, at least 7 feet from head to toe. Her hair floated around her head in long silver strands that moved slowly, as if underwater. She wore a simple white garment that glowed softly. Most shocking were the chains. Energy chains of pulsing blue light wrapped around her wrists and ankles, connecting her to 4 pillars that surrounded the platform. She appeared to be sleeping or unconscious, floating 6 inches above the platform in some kind of stasis field. June stood frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. This was what his uncle had been looking for. Not gold or minerals, but something far more valuable. Proof that humans were not alone in the universe. "She's beautiful," June whispered. The moment the words left his mouth, the energy chains flickered and changed color, shifting from blue to a soft golden hue. The woman's fingers twitched slightly. June moved closer, drawn by a feeling he couldn't explain. The air around the platform rippled like water when he approached. When he was just a few feet away, the woman's eyes opened. They were large, almond-shaped, and shining silver. They fixed directly on June with an intelligence that made him step back. There was no confusion in those eyes, only intense focus and what looked like surprise. The energy chains hummed louder and pulsed with light. The woman's lips parted slightly. Though she made no sound, June felt as if she was trying to speak to him. Carefully, June reached out his hand toward the energy field. The air felt thick, resistant, but not painful. As his fingers broke through the invisible barrier, the woman's eyes widened. The chains binding her flashed brightly. Then, to June's amazement, she moved her hand, just slightly, but enough to touch her fingertips to his. A shock ran through his body, not painful but intense, like every cell had been awakened. In his mind, he heard a voice, soft, musical, and clearly not his own thoughts. At last, the key has come. June pulled his hand back, shocked by the voice in his head. The alien woman watched him, her silver eyes never blinking. The golden chains around her wrists and ankles pulsed with light. "Did you just speak to me?" June asked out loud. The woman tilted her head. Her lips didn't move, but he heard the voice again in his mind. "Your mind accepts my thoughts. This is good. I have waited so long." June looked around the chamber, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Who are you? How long have you been here?" "I am Mara," the voice in his head replied. "By your way of counting time, I have been here for millions of years." Millions. June couldn't hide his disbelief. That's not possible. No living thing can survive that long. Nera moved her hand again, gesturing at the chains. "This prison was designed to keep me alive but asleep, until the right key came." "Key? You mean me?" "Yes. The ones who imprisoned me, the Void Collective, designed these chains with a genetic lock. They could only be broken by a species that did not exist when I was captured." Her eyes seemed to look through him. "Your kind. Humans." June sat down on the floor, trying to process what she was telling him. His uncle had been right all along. This mine wasn't a mine at all. It was a prison built by aliens. "I need to understand better," June said. "Can you show me how to release you completely?" Nera's expression changed slightly. "First, you must understand who I am. There is a device near the door. It will help us communicate better." June found a small disc-shaped object on a stand near the entrance. When he picked it up, it hummed to life, projecting a hologram of symbols in the air. "Place it on the floor before me," Nera instructed in his mind. When June did this, the disc glowed and expanded into a larger circle of light. Inside the circle, images began to appear, stars, planets, and beings that looked like Nera. "I am the last of the luminary," she explained as the images moved. "We were peaceful explorers and keepers of knowledge. This planet was once our outpost." The images showed beautiful cities with tall spires that glowed with the same blue light as the symbols on the walls. The Void Collective came from the dark spaces between galaxies. They wanted our technology, our knowledge of light and energy. The hologram changed to show dark ships and creatures with too many limbs. When we refused to give them our most dangerous secrets, they attacked. June watched as the beautiful cities were destroyed. They killed everyone, all except me. I was the keeper of our greatest knowledge. They could not take it from my mind. So they built this prison. Nera's mental voice grew sad. They designed a genetic lock that no existing species could open. They believed I would sleep forever. But they didn't count on new species evolving. Jun said, understanding now. Yes, human DNA is unique in the galaxy. Your touch activated the recognition sequence in the chains. Now I can speak to you, but I remain bound. June stood up and walked closer to her. My uncle spent his life looking for you. He found this door, but couldn't open it. I sensed him. His mind touched mine, but weakly. The door is calibrated to respond only to pure human DNA. Your uncle was different somehow. Jun remembered family stories about Great Uncle Q having genetic modifications for long-term space travel. That must have been enough to prevent him from opening the door. How do I free you completely? Jun asked. There is a control panel hidden in the wall. Your touch will reveal it. Jun walked around the room, running his hands along the smooth walls. Near one of the pillars, a section of wall glowed under his fingers and slid open. Inside was a crystal panel with a handprint outline. This will analyze your DNA fully, Nara explained. It will take time. The system must be certain. Jun hesitated. What happens after you're free? Will the Void Collective know? Yes. My freedom will trigger an alert. They will send scouts to investigate. Are they still out there? After millions of years. Time passes differently for them. They are long-lived and patient. Nora's eyes met his. You do not need to free me. You can leave, seal this place, and continue your life. Jun thought about his tiny apartment on Earth, his dead-end job, the bills he couldn't pay. Then he looked at Nera, trapped for millions of years, the last of her kind. If I free you, what then? I can share knowledge with you, technology your people have not yet discovered, ways to protect yourselves when the Void Collective comes. And they will come. Eventually. But we would have time to prepare. For the first time, Nera's mental voice held something like hope. I have been alone for so long. To speak with another mind again. Jun made his decision. He walked to the crystal panel and placed his hand on it. The surface lit up with golden light that spread up his arm, not painful but warm. It is reading your genetic code, Nera explained. Every human is slightly different. It needs to understand what makes your species unique. As the golden light moved through him, Jun felt a strange connection forming. Images flashed in his mind. Stars he didn't recognize, planets with multiple suns, and knowledge that seemed too vast to comprehend. What's happening? He asked, his voice shaking. Our minds are connecting more deeply, Nera replied. I am seeing your world through your memories. You are seeing fragments of mine. Through the connection, Jun felt her loneliness, her grief for her lost people, and her determination to protect the knowledge she carried. He also felt her growing trust in him, a trust that had taken millions of years to find. The analysis is almost complete, Nera said. Soon, I will be free, and together, we will face whatever comes. The golden light pulsed once more, brighter than before. In that moment, Jun knew his life had changed forever. Whatever waited beyond this chamber, he would not face it alone. The golden light from the crystal panel spread throughout the chamber. The chains binding Nera began to pulse faster. changing from gold to white. June watched as tiny cracks appeared in the energy links, spreading like ice breaking on a lake. "It's working," he whispered. Nara's body tensed as the chains grew brighter. Her silver eyes closed in concentration. Then, with a sound like breaking glass, the energy chain shattered. Thousands of light fragments filled the air before fading away. No longer suspended, Nara slowly descended until her feet touched the platform. She stumbled, and Jun rushed forward to catch her. Her skin felt warm under his hands, and she was lighter than he expected, as if her bones were hollow. "Are you hurt?" Jun asked. Nara straightened up carefully. She was indeed tall, her head nearly touching the ceiling. "My body is weak from stillness," she said, but this time her lips moved with the words. Her voice in the air was musical, with strange tones that human voices couldn't make. She took a small step, then another. To move again after so long. I had almost forgotten what it felt like. June watched as she stretched her arms and looked at her hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. Freedom showed on her face like sunrise. Then a low alarm sounded. Red lights flashed along the walls, and the symbols changed color. "What's happening?" June asked. "The alert has been triggered," Nara said, her voice now urgent. "The prison system is sending a signal to the Void Collective. We don't have much time." "How long until they get here?" "Days, perhaps. Their nearest outpost would be several star systems away." Nara moved toward the door with growing steadiness. "We must gather what we can from this place. There is knowledge here that your people will need." They left the chamber and returned to the room with the control panels. Nara placed her hands on them, and they lit up in response. The symbols moved faster now, as if excited by her touch. "This facility was more than my prison," she explained. "It was also an archive. The luminaries stored our most important discoveries here." A section of the floor opened, revealing a staircase going down. More blue lights came on, showing the way. "What will we find down there?" June asked. "Our legacy. Technology. History. Science that could help your people advance by centuries." They descended the stairs into a vast chamber that took June's breath away. The ceiling arched high above them, covered in moving star maps. The walls were lined with crystal containers that glowed with inner light. In the center stood a huge crystal pillar that pulsed with energy. "This is the heart of the archive," Nara said, her voice filled with emotion. "I feared they had destroyed it." She approached one of the crystal containers and touched it. Images appeared in the air, diagrams of machines June couldn't understand, formulas in an alien language, and models of star systems. "What is all this?" he asked. "Knowledge. Ways to travel between stars faster than light. Methods to create energy from nothing. Medicines that can cure any disease." Nara looked at him. "And weapons. Defenses against the Void Collective." June tried to take it all in. "This could change everything for humanity." "Yes, but we must be careful. Some knowledge is dangerous if misused." Nara touched the crystal pillar. "This contains copies of everything. I can transfer the most important information here." The pillar opened, revealing smaller crystal shards inside. Nara selected several and placed them in a container she took from a nearby shelf. "These will hold what your people need most right now," she said. "Energy, medicine, defense." As she worked, June explored the chamber. He found maps of the galaxy with thousands of stars marked. Some had symbols next to them that he guessed meant planets or settlements. "Were all these places where your people lived?" he asked. Nara looked up from her work. "Once. Long ago. I don't know if any survived the Void Collective." "Could there be other luminaries still out there? In other prisons like this one?" Nara was quiet for a moment. "I hope so. But I have been alone in my mind for so long. I would have felt them if they were near." June touched her arm gently. "You're not alone anymore." She looked at his hand on her skin, then met his eyes. "No, I am not." The moment was broken by another alarm. This one louder, with a deeper tone. What now? June asked. The facility's sensors have detected something in orbit around this planet. Nara moved quickly to a different panel. It's too soon for the Void Collective, but something has arrived. The panel showed an image of space above Proxima Centauri. A small ship was visible, moving into orbit. That's a human ship, Jun said, recognizing the design. Probably from the settlement. They must have detected the energy surge when you were freed. We should contact them, Nara said. They need to be warned about what's coming. How? My comm unit doesn't work this deep underground. Nara pointed to another part of the chamber. There. That panel controls the facility's communication system. It can reach the surface. They hurried to the panel. Nara showed June how to activate it, and a hologram appeared showing the settlement. Now we need to warn them, June said, and figure out how to explain you. Nara straightened to her full height. I will speak to them myself. It is time for our peoples to meet properly. She touched the panel, establishing a connection to the settlement. As they waited for a response, Jun realized that everything was about to change, not just for him, but for all of humanity. Are you ready for this? He asked Nara. She looked down at him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight from above. I have waited millions of years for this moment. Yes, Jun Park, I am ready. The face of Han, the settlement administrator, appeared in the hologram. His eyes widened in shock when he saw Nara standing beside June. Park, what is that? Where are you? Han's voice shook. I'm still in the mine, June explained. This is Nara. She's a luminary, and she's been imprisoned here for millions of years. Han's mouth opened and closed without words. More people appeared behind him, staring in disbelief. We need to speak with whoever is in charge of planetary defense, Nara said, her musical voice causing several people in the hologram to step back. Why? Han finally asked. What's happening? A hostile species called the Void Collective will be coming to this planet soon, Jun said. They built this prison for Nara, and now that she's free, they'll come to check why. One woman pushed to the front of the crowd. I'm Director Jin, head of security for this sector. If there's a threat to our colony, I need details. Nara stepped closer to the hologram. The Void Collective destroyed my civilization millions of years ago. They are powerful, ruthless, and patient. They will send scouts first, then a larger force. Jin's face remained serious. Do you have proof of this threat? We do, Jun said, and we have technology that can help defend against them. Over the next hour, June and Nara showed the settlement leaders the archive. Nara displayed historical records of the Void Collective's attacks on luminary worlds. She explained how their technology worked and why they were so dangerous. We need to contact Earth immediately, Jin decided. This goes beyond our settlement's authority. 3 days later, a military ship arrived from Earth. Scientists, military officers, and government officials filled the archive chamber, examining the luminary technology with amazement. Admiral Sung, a serious woman with gray hair, listened carefully to Nara's warnings. How long until these Void Collective scouts arrive? She asked. Less than 2 weeks, Nara replied. They travel between stars through what you would call wormholes. 2 weeks to prepare for an alien invasion. Sung sighed. Not much time. We have advantages. Nara pointed to several crystal shards on the table. These contain plans for defense systems that can be built quickly with your technology. Jun had barely slept since Nara's liberation. He worked alongside the Earth scientists, helping them understand the luminary data. Nara stayed close to him, using their mental connection to translate complex concepts. You should rest, Nara told him on the 5th day. They stood alone in a quiet corner of the archive. So should you, Jun replied with a tired smile. You've been free for less than a week after millions of years in chains. Nara touched his face gently. My people could go weeks without sleep when needed. Your body cannot. Jun covered her hand with his own. I'm afraid to sleep. What if they come early? I will watch over you, she promised. Just a few hours. June finally agreed. As he drifted into sleep in a small room near the archive, he felt Nera's mind touch his. It brought comfort, like a blanket made of starlight. He woke to alarms. Nera stood over him, her face tense. They're here, she said simply. In the settlement's communications center, screens showed 3 small ships entering the planet's atmosphere. They were black and shaped like arrowheads, moving faster than any human ship could. Are those the scouts? Admiral Sung asked. Nera nodded. They expected to find only my prison. They're not prepared for a defended planet. Our new defense systems are ready, Jin reported. Shall we fire when they get in range? No, Nera said. Let me speak to them first. The void ship slowed as they approached the settlement. They hovered in the air, scanning the buildings below. Nera stood in the open, her silver-blue skin glowing in the red sunlight. June stood beside her, along with Admiral Sung and Director Jin. Behind them, hidden defense weapons were aimed at the ships. A beam of dark light shot down from the center ship. Inside it appeared a tall figure. It had 4 arms and skin the color of space. Its eyes were just black holes in its face. Luminary, it hissed in a strange language that somehow everyone understood. You have escaped. How is this possible? The genetic lock was opened, Nera replied calmly. By humans. The creature turned its empty eyes toward June. This primitive species. Impossible. Not impossible. It happened. Nera stood taller. And now the humans know about you. They are prepared. The creature made a sound like rocks grinding together. They are nothing. We will take you back and destroy them. Admiral Sung stepped forward. We are not as primitive as you think. Nera has shared knowledge with us. At a signal from Sung, the hidden weapons revealed themselves. They glowed with luminary energy, aimed at the 3 ships. Leave now, Nera said, or we will destroy your scouts, and then we will prepare for your fleet. The creature's empty eyes moved from the weapons to Nera to the humans. You would ally with these short-lived beings. They freed me when you thought it impossible, Nera replied. They learn quickly. They adapt. And they are not alone. What do you mean? The creature demanded. Nera smiled. I have sent messages to the stars. If any luminaries still exist in other prisons, humans will find them too. This was not true, Jun knew, but the creature couldn't know that. The creature stepped back into its beam of dark light. This is not over, luminary. No, Nera agreed. It is just beginning. The 3 ships rose quickly and left the planet's atmosphere. On the screens, the humans watched them jump into what looked like tears in space before disappearing. They'll be back with more ships, Admiral Sung said. Yes, Nera turned to face the humans around her. But we have time. Time to prepare, to build, to learn. June took her hand. Time to find others like you, if they exist. Together, Nera said, looking at their joined hands. That evening, June and Nera stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. New buildings were already being constructed. Research facilities to study luminary technology, defense centers, and a spaceport for the ships that would soon arrive from Earth. This wasn't what I expected when I inherited a mine, Jun said with a smile. Nera looked up at the stars that were just becoming visible. And I never expected freedom would lead to this. A new beginning for both our peoples. Below them, humans worked through the night, building the first outpost of what would soon become the Human Luminary Alliance.